there though. Perfect. Yep.
Hey everyone, this is Scott Harris with the NAPAICC Insider Podcast, and today I have the great pleasure of introducing Richie Kidwell. Richie Kidwell is a Florida entrepreneur, or should I say multipreneur. He has operated and owned multiple businesses. He's an expert in mold assessment. He is also the president of Restoration Association of Florida, and he hosts a podcast on YouTube, and I think a few other channels as well called Contractor Talk. So Richie, it's a pleasure to have you here today, and I appreciate you helping this conversation move forward.
Absolutely, Scott. Hey, thanks for having me on your show. And yes, Contractor Talk with Richie Kidwell is one of the, I would say I've had it for a good several years, and now we've went back to podcasts. I was on live radio for a while, more bringing the consumer into the conversation as well. The contractors have had I would say I was going to say the ability, but really nowadays, that's how the insureds, the consumers get their information is as they only deal with insurance claims on average one every 10 years or once in a lifetime. And so you can imagine everything that's happening in a very quick pace after a major hurricane or a loss in somebody's home, and where they're learning everything for the first time from a contractor in their home. And who do you trust? Right. And that's the biggest question that comes up. And one of the reasons why I founded the Restoration Association of Florida back in 2014. And for years, we've been a lobbying firm more than anything, but it's more information. And that's why we've had so many members, part of our association, that wants to know what's going on. And as my friend Senator Farmer would say, if you're not at the table, you're on the table. So being a part of our association and understanding what's happening in today's world, and then how to help the consumer as much as possible, and still do business today in this messed up new world that we live in here in Florida. So,
Insurance
but yeah,
world.
man, it is, and we still stay in it for some reason. And I think it's more that we put the homeowner first, we put the consumer first, and ourselves second. And I think that's what's also keeping us in business today. Many people have gotten out of the business here in Florida, and as policies have eroded, premiums have shot up, and now we have seemingly no protections. The best protection you're going to have now is having a public adjuster on your claim. And Scott, I see you are a big advocate for homeowners. I see when we're involved in the same claim, how things move along and move forward, and how you're helping consumers on your side of things as a public adjuster.
Hey,
So
I'm
I
not
think that's
perfect and I
important.
make mistakes all the time. But recognizing those mistakes and trying to correct those mistakes, I think is really important in the adjustment process, as you pointed out. So let's not inflate my tires too much here. You look at, since 2019, we've had a lot of problems in Florida with insurance. I mean, even before that, but I'm just going to go to 2019. So let's look at the last 5 years. And in 2019, they started doing all kinds of crazy things, right? They started doing MRP programs. They started really regulating a lot of the industry, especially on the contractor side. They have captivated or held captive Xactimate as the number one software for insurance companies that they sort of require unofficially all contractors to use. And we've seen a lot of changes, legislative changes that started in 2022. And then, that affected the assignment of benefits. And I know that you have some understanding of the assignment benefits. And I heard you talking about
Little bit.
this just a little bit, right? And I
Little
heard
bit.
you talking about this. And I've always said, Richie, that I believe that contractors should not have an assignment of benefits. But then I heard you talking about it. And you had said something, you made it an analogy that when you go to the doctor's office, you have a deductible, right? And you have that's the copay. I would say the deductible is the equivalency of a copay in a doctor's office, so to speak. You made this analogy that was really good and stuck with me about how they sort of practice an assignment of benefits in the insurance industry on healthcare and on any other, type of insurances outside of property insurance. So kind of like give the homeowners and everybody watching this right now is assignment of benefits a horrible, evil thing that contractors did just so that they can extort huge amounts of money? Or was this a necessary evil in the industry to sort of bring balance and give homeowners the capacity to actually have some sort of ability to fight their own claim?
Right. And that's a good point, right? I mean, it's all about the consumer having the right to choose, right? I mean, I learned very quickly in 2020 during all the COVID madness that we, as a society, went from my body, my choice to we don't have a choice anymore. I am very independent. That's why I got kicked off of Facebook. I still don't go on that place. I'm an independent guy. I was thankful for our governor to keep our businesses open, but now he's bought and paid for, and look what we got from that. Whole nother story about why we're
Yeah,
in the
that was
place
it.
that we
Hold
are
on though.
today.
I'm not a huge DeSantis fan, but I think he handled COVID pretty decently as a governor did in the state of Florida. And he pushed back quite a bit on a lot of those things that they were, promoting, throughout the country. Um,
Yeah, calling out the bullshit, and that's what I love about somebody with a backbone. He was going around putting roundtables on with medical providers when the world was saying that the hospitals were overflowing with patients and stuff. And during all that, my dad had hip surgery. I bring him to the hospital. It was a ghost town. Nobody was there. I turned on my camera and I started interviewing people. I'm like, hey, so what's what the news reports? All these people are supposed to be like filling out the hospitals. They said, no, it's been a ghost town. It has not been what has been reported. It's just bullshit. The whole thing was and still is. We're finding that out, right? They're calling the people in the tinfoil hats, saying, oh, the conspiracy theorists, this and that. And now look what we're seeing, right? I mean, but
so apply that to
what,
property insurance claims real quick. Like
yeah, let's
literally,
do this.
yeah.
Yeah, let's do this. And so my analogy with this was with the assignment of benefit, going back to having the right to choose. And that's where I think that everyone should have the right to choose on what they want to do. We all have insurance in many different facilities, right? We have our auto policy, which anytime you have a chip in your windshield, what happens? You call the Safe Flight people, which is owned by State Farm, or you call an independent guy, and they come out and they will replace your windshield for free, right? It's free. Right. Yeah, everybody knows that. It's like, oh yeah, it's no problem. But what's happening in the background? Well, what's happening is whoever comes out, well, it's owned by State Farm, like Safe Flight is, or somebody else, they're signing an assignment of benefit. An assignment of benefit is work and services you perform now that you'll get paid later on through that policy, through that claim. Once a claim is made in a policy, then you have the right to assign a portion of that claim to a third party provider. And so you get your windshield done for quote unquote for free. The consumer does, right? Behind the scenes, your insurance company is paying what should be 100% of the NAGS, National Honor Glass Society, provides a certain amount to third party contractors. They only pay 50% and make them sue for the rest. Again, insurance companies are evil. Anyway, so and then you have medical, right? I mean, we've all gone to a chiropractor, right? We've all gone to a medical person. I've heard people say, "Oh, my 85-year-old doctor lady, she's so nice, she's so sweet, and she's been our provider for 30, 40 years, and blah blah blah." And I said, man, can you imagine? I mean, your sweet little 85-year-old doctor. Can you imagine as soon as you leave there, after you sign all of this paperwork, you're signing an assignment of benefits, period. Whether you go to the chiropractor, your general doctor, anesthesiologist, everybody and anybody, when you walk into a doctor and you say, here's my insurance policy, a claim is now provided. And to you, it's a claim number. And then all of those providers are just the same as you would as a restoration contractor or roofer coming out. But now you have anesthesiologist coming out, your general provider, your specialist coming in, and you're signing a new paperwork with each one of them along the way. And you're paying your copay or whichever. They're billing your insurance. If you don't think your sweet 85-year-old general doctor isn't suing the shit out of your insurance company, you're wrong. They are. They always sue them. They're always underpaying bills. They're forgetting to pay bills on timelines, trying to get people to agree to their. That's why we have in-network, out-of-network, right? In-network are pussies that decided to go ahead and take the cheaper price and they're not going to fight. And then the out-of-network are the ones that are saying, no, this is my price. Fuck you. This is what you're going to pay, right? And so my bills are different than your bills, right? So, and my operation costs are different than your cost, right? So anyway, so
Well, that's like
Um,
the MRP program versus when they just hire regular contractors out there, right? Preferred vendors, kind of
sure.
like your in-network
There's no
thing.
right, yeah, there's no right to choose. And I say this before, it's like having full coverage medical insurance, and then when you file a claim, you end up in the Medicare line. It's like, what? How did that happen?
I thought I
That's what
had
the
Blue Cross Blue
MRP,
Shield. It's like I
right?
thought I had Blue Cross Blue Shield, and now
I
I'm
thought I had
getting
access to
pushed
great
back on
doctors.
everything. I can't get the test done that I need
Mhm.
done that the doctor's recommended because it's not the right line item or it's not approved. It is a mess. So, in
Sure,
your
sure.
opinion, the assignment of benefits benefited the homeowners in Florida during a time of severe need, yes?
Absolutely. And again, I mean, the right to choose is there. I say this in every one of my presentations. You don't hear much from the rich people, right? I mean, they're just paying their way along, right? You hear the people that depend on their insurance policy that need and depend on these proceeds, and they're expected to have it covered under their policy of insurance. We are governed by the Florida laws since 1970s or 80s that say that you have to have home insurance when you have a mortgage on your home. You know, A plus rating or an A rated insurer that covers your the whole asset of your home, your biggest asset, and that is your home. When you drive a car, you have to have insurance to drive it down the road. I mean, you have to have insurance. Most people have medical insurance, right? I mean, and they depend on that, right? You have a good neighbor. You're in good hands. That's what we've been told, right? I mean, through all the marketing and everything that you're taken care of. Don't worry, pay your premium, and you're covered. And what we found out is that after the major law changes, after our governor got bought out in 2022 by big insurance, right? During all that time, we all saw it happen in 2020, where there was laws put in place that said all insurance companies have to now show all of their expenses and broken down in a way that we would see how they're spending their money on claims.
Look,
Well,
in 2021 and 2022, especially in 2022, we had approximately like 23, 24, 25 insurance companies either go insolvent in Florida or leave the state of Florida, like the big ones, Progressive, State Farm, all the big companies said, we're not gonna do business in Florida the way things are right now. There's too much, legislation going on, litigation going on. There's too much lawsuits going on. There's too much fraud going on. We're pulling out. What was
that was the
DeSantis
media.
supposed, but what was he supposed to do though with every insurance company pulling out and citizens
like
growing
like Charlie
exponentially too
Crist
big?
did, like Charlie Crist did with a backbone. He looked at them and said, "No, if you want to pull out of Florida for property insurance only, take your auto with you and get the fuck out of Florida." Because if you go to the Office of Insurance Regulation website right now, you'll see there's over 400 licensed insurance providers here in the state of Florida that provide home insurance. Another five or 600 that provide auto. Most of them sell both.
Right.
Right. And so your bigger ones, like Charlie Crist did, said, as a Democrat, he's a little bit weird, whatever. And I won't hold it against him because, again, I'm good friends with Senator Farmer, who was the head of the Democrats. I knocked on doors for him. I'm a independent, I'm more independent, right? A gun-toting Republican, how they
I
say,
try to be
whatever.
independent too as a business person. You know what I mean? I've
Right.
always been
I don't have a
independent.
card anymore. My red
Yeah.
card, I threw that down after I saw my governor get bought out. Now, Republicans are known for being no less regulation is what they're supposed to be. They understand that majority of the residents of Florida are small business owners, right? Or they're part of a business. They're not supposed to be sucking the D of big business. And what happened was is that our governor decided to run for president. He
Yeah.
then went, and then the insurance, when they're in the middle of their quote unquote financial crisis, right? Even though that same year, Universal, who only writes in Florida, sold $1 billion worth of insurance and have no problems showing and boasting the 30, $40 million net quarterly gains during all that crisis, whatever. We all know that's bullshit. So it was all a play from OIR so they can then, which David Altmaier headed up in 2020, 21, and 22 when he parachuted out to go be a big boss in some sort of like lobbying firm when the laws changed and make him wait 6 years instead of 2 years to be a lobbyist. Anyways, it was all set up from the inside to where OIR was blowing up everything, allowing insurance companies to get 20, 30, 50, 100% increases on premiums where they never needed. So that made it everybody start like squinching their asshole and saying, "Oh my God, premiums are going up. What can we do?" And then they brought in that fake fact, which is not true, where they said that 8% of all the policies in Florida or something, or claims or whatever, and 76% of all the litigation is occurring in Florida. Well, that figure that they did, they pulled an analysis off for wind only related claims. We're a fucking peninsula in Florida, right? So they said, okay, all the wind claims, and they only did wind claims and they excluded New York, right? And then they only pulled and they excluded Montana and stuff like that. They had a bunch of wind claims, and they never counted all the claims from Texas, which all the pipe breaks and all the freezes that just happened during that year. So they said, this is where we're getting our stats. So you go back in some of the committees, I was up there saying, no, that's false. That is wrong. That information is wrong. You didn't include this state, this state, and this state. And what did Senator Brandy say on there? He's like, what, three people live in Nevada? Like, blah, blah, blah. And didn't, and skipped over the fact that there was hundreds of thousands of claims, if not millions of claims, that they never accounted for in other states that were non-wind related, like the pipe freeze breaks in Texas, and like all the storm related claims and flooding in New York and on the Eastern coast. So all of their facts were all to then put it up to the legislature to give a fake narrative that, hey, we need to make all these insurance reforms. And if they were worried about premiums, why didn't they have two words together in hundreds of pages of laws that they made change? There was two words that never existed: premium reduction. Never existed in any of that law change, and that's what
And
we're supposed to
premiums,
go
look
for.
at, I see premiums all the time, and I can look at a premium 3 years ago, 4 years ago, 2 years ago, even last year, and they have substantially increased. I mean, the average
And
premium
the
that I was.
coverage has eroded.
And the coverage has absolutely eroded, right? They're putting a lot of limitations on the roofs now. They want 10 or 15 years, within 10 or 15 years of last replacement. They want plumbing systems updated. They want electrical systems. They really want you to put about $100,000 in the house just to insure it so that they can feel comfortable about the risk. And that's
Right,
kind
which
of.
there's no risk now. Look at what happened in the paper after the laws changed when our governor was running for president and he took $100 million from the insurance lobby who was in a fake financial crisis. He took $100 million from the insurance and then put on three special sessions to change the laws. Luckily, we had Chris Sprouse as our Speaker of the House in 2022. He shifted out. New people came in November, and what did he do? December, we had two special sessions, and then again, the first session of the year was all about insurance reform. They took away the AOB, they took away attorney's fees for AOB rights, right? So now they took away choices for homeowners, and then the attorney's fees for the assignees to be able to collect on that. It's like going to your doctor not getting paid, your doctor trying to sue your insurance provider for the rest, and they have to pay their own fees and costs along the way. So it makes it not worth it. And so that's what we're seeing in the marketplace. Less vendors like that, less choice, less options. So now you're in network or there is no network or you're paying out of pocket, which is bullshit. So it's not how it's supposed to be when you're covered by insurance. Well, that happens, and then we lose all that, and then we lose attorney's fees and costs for homeowners, which has been a law since the late 1800s, 1893, I believe. Florida Supreme Court gave the David versus Goliath law that says if insurance company was wrong, they wrongfully denied you or underpaid you or slow walked you, they will pay your fees and costs if you have to go hire an attorney. That's
And
why you
that
see
law
the
goes back to
billboards.
when would you say, 1890?
Yes, in the 1890s, we've had Florida Supreme Court case law, David versus Goliath, and with one pen stroke and $100 million, the sun shining on the right spot at the right time, with our dumb governor trying to run for president against President Trump, which we knew he was going to lose, right? So he knew also, but he kept the money because he changed the law before he took the money. He signed a law that says, I don't have to disclose any of my expenditures or the cabinet from the money that he receives. He also signed a bill the day before he announced for president that he doesn't have to step down as the governor if he runs for president, as the law was like that for years before he existed as our governor. So they say absolute power ruins absolutely, and it did in this case, to where his head got so big, he accepted so much money from insurance lobby that he did their bidding. And over the course of special sessions, what happened as a result of that? Our first storm, which two storms came through: Hurricane Milton, Hurricane Helene. And then the papers all came out. Read it in the Miami Herald. You don't have to believe me, but it's all there in the papers. 15 insurance companies denied more than 50% of the claims that were filed from those two storms.
That's true.
Citizens, which held over 1 million policies at that time, was at the top of 77% a declination rate. And all of your big providers were up there: Snake Farm, All Snake, PTI, everybody were there that were denying more than 50% of the claims. So millions of people got denied. And guess what? When 20% of those people that actually do something about it, maybe 10% do something about it, and they hire a lawyer. Well, guess what? At the worst day, the insurance company now, because of the law changes, all they owe is what they should have owed in the beginning. No
Right.
attorney's fees, no cost, and that's off the backs of consumers. So if you have to hire an attorney, you're paying their fees and costs now, and that goes against what you should have been paid in the beginning. So if it costs you 20,000 to fix your roof, 2 years later you get your 20 grand minus fees and costs, and now you're going back to just repairing a roof because you don't have enough money to replace your roof.
Well,
So
I
tell me
mean that
that's
is a
not
problem.
fucked
Look,
up.
look at people don't realize the majority of the population in Florida is an average income. These most of the people living here are either retired and on fixed incomes, or they're young and they're developing families and they have an average income. So when they have an insurance claim, they really need that policy to fulfill its promise and help them bring them back to pre-loss condition. And what
Yes.
I'm seeing is that policyholders don't even want to call a claimant anymore. They just don't have a trust in the system, or they're
Mhm.
losing a major, they don't trust the carriers, they don't trust public adjusters, they don't trust their contractors, they don't trust anybody anymore, bro. And
Yeah,
that's a problem because if you don't trust anybody and you do nothing, you lose. You lose.
it's true. That's true. And you're not helping the consumer. The consumer stays confused and doesn't know what to do next. So they will rely on their contractor. They will rely on some people until they get burned, right? And or they can't help them any further. And that's what we're seeing here. And it's unfortunate because we are a peninsula. We're surrounded by water. We get hit 1 to 2 times a year in some cases by a major storm or event. Throughout the year, we get other types of pop-up storms and tornadoes. And so we see these policies now that are $10,000 water damage limits, $10,000 mold limits. You can have a $500,000 home and have water damage from a pipe that blew up in your wall, from a wind event, a water damage got inside, right? And maybe through a window somewhere outside of the roof. Or you had your roof put on 5 or 10 years ago and it's a 30-year roof and they're trying to lower that. All that is illegal. It's against the law. It's against Florida statute. And so how they're getting away with it is beyond me. We just had our elections, our primary elections, and we see that Blaise Ingoglia, our current CFO, is just a chip off the old block from the last CFO, which was all their money was provided by the insurance companies. So what do you think that they were doing? The bidding of them. I know somebody that's there in the Office of Insurance Regulation, and from what I understand, nothing is happening. They aren't doing anything. They're not enforcing any of the laws. The laws are there to protect consumers against these insurance companies from putting illegal stuff in their policy, but they're doing it through these what they call limitations. And so,
There's an
like,
egregious example. I don't mean to cut you off, Richie, but there's an
yeah, no,
egregious example I
no.
came across my desk the other day. It's a universal claim, and in their policy, they added language in that I haven't seen in the last few years. And so in Florida, generally homeowners policies are replacement cost policies. You agree with that?
Yes. Well, it has to
So
be, right? Because that's what the Florida statute says. You get two things, right? Replacement cost value and ordinance and law. You're supposed to
right.
be offered both.
Right. So in this case, what they've done is they put policy language in that says we will initially pay the claim ACV value. All policies say that. We will initially pay the claim AC value. And then it says we will pay replacement cost value with depreciation incorporated into that. So they hold back some recoverable depreciation, and that's what they're supposed to do so that you have enough money to fix the damages and bring yourself back to pre-loss condition. What Universal put in there, though, was we will pay the ACV initially, and then the rest of the replacement value or the replacement cost value is cost incurred. It literally says it's cost incurred. You have to spend the money and show the receipts in order to get reimbursed on a replacement cost value policy now. And that, to me, is
Wow.
a violation of the Florida statute. It screws you on duties after loss because if you don't have the money outside of your deductible, which is the expectation, right? We have
Right.
deductibles for a reason. And if you have a $2,500 deductible, the expectation is that you probably have 25 sitting in the bank somewhere, right? If you have a $5,000 deductible, same thing. But that's all they really have. So if they experience a lot of storm-created openings, they need a new roof, there's sheathing damage, there's gutter damage, there's water intrusion, and you got interior, mold growing and water damage. How are you supposed to take a ACV amount on an adjustment that they provided to you, right, which is an arbitrary subjective amount that they decided on their own, and fund the rest of the repairs and submit those receipts? And so there's a lot of problems I see with that, and that's happening right now, and I don't really know what to think of it. What's your thoughts?
I think that there's a reason why there's an ACV that's called actual cash value versus the replacement cost value. And so we hear that a lot. And I think now as professionals, you are providing both on the onset, unless all the work has been performed. Then you're providing more RCV receipts and saying, I need full reimbursement. Um, my opinion on this is that I think it's shady. I think that, again, going back to what homeowners think they have in their policy, now they're finding out that they really don't have the coverage after a major storm or an event, and that not only are these all these new limitations and ways for them to screw you, like the 1% matching clause that they have in your limitations. Now they're also limiting water damage to 10,000. We've all known that there's a limitation on mold for 10 or 25,000. You have to ask for more coverage on the mold side of things. They now have a $5,000 cap on sewage and sub pump coming back into your home. And so backflows and such. And and again, if you have an expensive home and you're trying to find the best coverage, we're not finding it here in Florida. We really aren't. Unless you look at a third party company that maybe is like a supplemental company like Lloyd's of London or something like that to start to add supplements to your policy to allow that coverage. And that's unfortunate because already it's so expensive here in Florida. These RCV policies, you don't see them without these exclusions and limitations right now. Rarely do you see that in Florida, even at a high premium. So going back to that ACV, do you think it's right? I don't. I don't think so because we should be just self-funding our own insurance then if this is what's going to be happening. And we're not seeing that. I mean, my parents are trying to refinance their home right now, and they have Universal, and at $4,000 a year. Their taxes are $5,000 a year. That's $9,000 for the year that they have to roll in to their monthly mortgage payment, and
They're
that's
lucky it's
very
not
expensive.
15 because I've seen policies go from 4 to 15,000 over the last 3 years. They made a jump from 4,500 to 7,500, and then bam, all of a sudden it's $15,000, and people are
Right.
like,
And
"What the
do we get
fuck?"
any credit for that? Right. I mean, do the insurance companies say, hey, thank you for renewing for us 5 times over and making no claims? Let's start giving back some policy exposure, right? You would think anything would allow this, but they're getting super greedy. They didn't have to hold up to public scrutiny by getting more than 15% of an increase. And you can look it up. Florida law says that if an insurance company gets more than a 15% increase, that they have to go in front of a public hearing and it gets scrutinized on the reasons why they need to increase that.
I'm not
But
seeing
also
that
in the
happen. I'm not
no,
seeing that
no,
happen.
I
I'm
called it
seeing
out in the
premiums
Florida
go up
legislature.
dramatically, but I'm not seeing a public hearing. I'm not seeing any kind of explanations or accountability in that.
Right. Zero accountability, zero transparency. And it's unfortunate too, because now look who's leading the way for becoming the new governor. And so we have somebody in
You
with
talking about
Byron
Byron?
Donalds. Yeah, Byron Donalds, who is going to do the same thing that his predecessor's doing. We're going to have the same 4 years of shit where we've got nobody with a backbone to stand up against big insurance. and he's not going to. He supported big insurance. He's reportedly stated that he is seeing that we're getting control here in Florida, and the only control that is happening is insurance companies are controlling more and more. I mean, the papers say, I mean, look at Slide Insurance, right? I mean, I'm not hating on the guy, but I mean, he fucked up a bunch of stuff in Texas, came over here from Enron, right? I mean, during all that debacle as the CFO or an attorney over there as counsel, and somehow starts Heritage Insurance Company, makes $80 million in 8 years, starts Slide Insurance, and gets all of 91,000 policies from the state of Florida prepaid from to him from UPC, while all the claims that were
Oh, it
filed
came from
against UPC.
UPC?
Oh yeah,
That came from
91,000.
UPC?
That is 91,000 policies went from UPC when they pulled out of Florida.
Hmm.
So they gave all of their claims to FIGA, which is the Florida Insurance Guarantee
Yep.
Association, which we all pay for as citizens of the state of Florida that have insurance. And
No,
then
it's paid
all
for
of
in every
that,
premium. There's a line item in every premium that goes to FAGA. So for homeowners that don't realize this, they're paying into a Florida insurance recovery in case they get screwed, basically.
right.
And that's a lot of money if you think about all the premiums that they're paying into.
Right. And then so he starts Slide Insurance, right? And then they're a good insurance company starting out very first. And then we start to see they're fighting with everybody. They're starting the same tactics as everyone else, right? And they're putting all the limitations and exclusions in their policies. And then in the papers, it came out that he is making between him and his wife, who's now on payroll, $1 million a week, 50+ million dollars a year, and that's just one executive between him and his wife. You'll call it the same, maybe two people, whatever. One household is making
Right.
$1 million a week off the backs of your consumers here in the state of Florida. And you can't offer a better policy. You can't take maybe a haircut, a couple $100,000 a week and pay claims with it. You can't help reduce the premiums for people in the state of Florida with all that. How much money do you absolutely need to make yourself feel good? Right. I mean, go out, you can buy as many purses and many boats as you need. And then, but at some point, you got to say, how can I help consumers feel like they can afford to live here in the state of Florida? Right. I mean, you really can't. And because you're in with the others, you're just as bad as the bunch. Right. Just because one's doing it doesn't mean you should do it. Um,
Absolutely.
and so we saw several things happen after the law change, right? And it's like, oh, all this stuff is why the reasons why our premiums continue to go up because of the litigation. But remember, when I got into it in 2014, the boogeyman at that point was the restoration contractors. That's why we became the Restoration Association of Florida. We brought a voice up to Tallahassee and said, it's not us. Absolutely not us. It's the insurance companies. And we brought them examples. Look at how they wrongfully denied this claim. Look how they paid these guys, but not me. What am I supposed to do? Look at the rates that doctors file against their insurance providers, way higher than us. I know a doctor that owns all of the advanced dermatologies, and they're just doing good stuff for people. They're just cutting off, cancerous stuff off their skin. I said, what percentage of yours do you get paid and what percentage do you have to file suit on? He says, well, initially about 20-30% is what I get paid on. A lot of it goes to pre-suit or suit after that. More than 50% of the stuff he does as a normal doctor on a national rate goes to litigation, goes to suit, goes to attorneys, right? Unneeded costs that are going out on the backs of consumers. Why is an ibuprofen or a Tylenol $500? Because when it all shakes out, the cost to collect it is half of that, right? And then the cost to collect it in litigation and your own staff makes it so high of your cost to collect that they have to charge so much,
Well,
right? I
that
mean,
goes with, hey, but that applies to the contractors too that got to wait a year to get paid on something they
absolutely,
billed out for, right? I mean, I
absolutely,
mean, and I've tried to explain this to a lot of people because I was a general contractor for 2.5 decades, and what people don't realize is that contractors don't necessarily have an endless bank account to float every freaking job for a year and then wait 3 years to get paid on every one of those freaking jobs, right?
right.
So, I mean,
And this is
why is there an expectation? Well, why is there an expectation for the insurance companies to expect the contractors to foot their bill to begin with?
right. And the same scenario, it's going to create that same thing. If a homeowner doesn't have the funds and they know they got guaranteed money coming, it's just when, is always the question. And what's it going to cost to attain that? Some contractors are still building roofs, waiting on the money because it's like more damage is going to occur. And if they're not going to do it, then more damage is going to happen, and the homeowner's going to be at a bad place. Maybe they just have to repair it, or they find somebody else. And at that side, that on their standpoint, they're losing the job too. So they're in that weird spot of like, we used to be able to do it because we had a guarantee that we would get paid, and our attorney's fees and costs would be paid by the insurance if we win and we prevail, which we normally do. And so most contractors will not front the load of that unless they know they're going to get paid. Same thing as your doctor. Same thing as the people that are putting on your windshield. Same thing whenever you go and you have auto repairs done and you go to a repair shop. They're getting an assignment. They're still calling them assignments today. It's not an assignment of benefits, but it's an assignment that the insurance company is providing to the car shop. Car shop is
Yeah,
providing it
it's
to
a
them.
vendor assignment.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And then they have the confidence to go ahead and rebuild their vehicle, take pictures, and then send it to the carrier to get reimbursement, right? And again, that's creating this in network, out of network, which I don't believe in so much, right? I mean, I don't believe in State Farm owning and even answering the calls, and many times when you're calling Safe Light, right? I mean, they have the same colors and everything, right? I'm not comfortable with State Farm starting and owning Exactimate, right? It was only recently that they sold off the major share of it. I don't even know if they still have ownership in it, but it's like insurance companies have owned these things forever, and they are controlling goods and services from A to Z. Right. I mean, that's been federally illegal for a long time. Monopolies have been illegal, and they are just a big cartel that can get away with anything, and especially here in the state of Florida, with nobody running the helm as CFO. We just had some primary elections with Blaze Golia. Again, I mentioned that he is just the same as the predecessor, and that's what we're going to expect. If he wins again, even though he's in a lot of trouble for not putting in that he doubled his income in 1 year being CFO. That's weird to do that. And then also not disclosing $10 million worth of properties in his application to run again for CFO. So that's going to be a problem that he's going to have to deal with. But if he's shady just on his initial paperwork and no, how do you want to say, nobody guarding the hen house here, right? That will make insurance companies be accountable. They need to stay accountable for slow walking folks, for putting in all this crap in the policies that are going against homeowners. These $10,000 water damage limitations, managed care programs, so they don't have a choice to use
I
somebody
actually,
that may
I
not even
actually,
be
I
licensed.
actually like the $10,000 water limits these days because they're applying them wrong. The adjusters are, and I'm noticing they're applying them wrong. It's something I haven't noticed in the past. So we're going after that pretty hard because if you apply negative policy application to a claim, I have a real big problem with that in general. You know what I mean? So Richie, we're gonna wrap this up. And we talked about a lot here, and it all comes down to the carriers screwing the policyholders and everybody else trying to help the industry, you know, actually help people. That's what it comes down to. So where do we go from here? Where are we going in 2027, 2028? Is the pendulum going to swing back? Do we have work to do? How do we regain that trust in the industry? You know, blah, blah, blah. What can we fucking do to fix this problem? Because I'm
Yeah.
having the conversation for a reason, and that is so that we can bring awareness and that homeowners out there who are watching this or watching things like this can get educated on what they can do when a situation happens like a claim and they don't know what to do. And I've seen so many people just giving up. I don't know what to do. I'll accept the funds from the insurance company, even though it's quite inadequate for me to fix my home with that, and I will figure it out on my own if I can. That's a terrible position to be in for any homeowner, don't you think?
It really is. It really is. And don't expect leadership to provide these changes. The only thing that will, and it's unfortunate, is that we get a hurricane this year that ravishes the state of Florida, and we have people going up to Tallahassee with pitchforks and saying we need major change. There wasn't enough noise after Hurricane Milton
And
and
Helene.
Helene to make noise here in the state of Florida for enough. There was, again, in the paper showed that 15 insurance companies denied more than 50% of the claims. but that didn't get people angry enough to force their legislators to make major change. Now, right now, Senator or Governor DeSantis has a lock on everything. So
What do you mean? What
if
do you mean by that? What?
he has a lock on everything. I was there during the special sessions with a bunch of Republicans sitting in a room that have a majority hold on everything. There's 14 of us, and they were counting the votes. And they said, we don't have enough votes to swing. The Democrats used to stick together, and then we only had to have a couple of Republicans change their mind to go against the governor. We simply don't have the votes this year. The governor is very scary. He's telling people that if they don't go his way, that he will run somebody against them in the primaries and they will lose their seat. They won't have a good committee seating, and all these major changes would happen if they don't go his way. And he's been running everything. He's been pushing the bills. He's the one that sent the reform over. I sat next to Senator Boyd before he filed the bill. The Thursday before the bill was filed that killed insurance on that next day, Friday, and then then it was in his committee and the banking and insurance company the very next Tuesday. Well, on Thursday, guess what he told me? He says, Rich, I have no idea what's going to be here, but it can't be any worse. And we kind of chuckled about it. And I said, yeah, we've been taking a lot of hits lately. And what do you think happened, right? The death nail came out. He didn't even know it. Where did it come from? The governor's office. The governor pushed it. He did his bidding, even though I kind of like the guy. Senator Boyd's a really nice guy, but man, he was forced to do the governor's bidding. And he says it was in the best interest of the folks here in the state of Florida that we needed some major change. And they took the guts out of things that were here since the late 1890s that helped prevent this kind of overtake and overreach from large insurance by giving the homeowners something in their back pocket, which is having attorney's fees and costs if they had to fight against their big insurance companies. And now most people aren't filing claims or, excuse me, filing a suit against their insurance company if they get denied because they have to fight the big guy. And unless you have a major claim, you're not going to find an attorney to help you these days because there's no attorney's fees and costs. So don't look for leadership to help this change. We have to look for, unfortunately, consumers to be fed up with it and talk to their legislator and say, we need change. We need this right away and do it now while there's a new governor coming in and while there's a new CFO coming in and saying, what are you guys going to do to help allow more policy or coverage in our policy and lower premiums? And what are you going to do to help homeowners this year to have good insurance and have them feel like they're covered and be affordable?
Okay, a homeowner has a claim. It happens right now as I was talking. It could be any kind of claim. What's your advice right now? Go.
Well, you have insurance for a reason. Just like your auto, if you get in a car accident, the damages are more than your deductible. We don't think twice on filing a claim. I would say the same thing here. If you have damages that supersede your deductible in any lines of your insurance, I would say file the claim, take lots of pictures, document it, seek professional advice as somebody who's on your side of things. Don't allow your insurance agent to be the person that you listen to. Don't let your insurance adjuster be the only person that you listen to. Research it. Talk to somebody like Scott that is a professional in the industry and file the claim and do the best that you can to document and don't be afraid if you get wrongfully denied to move to the next stage, which could be mediation or unfortunately could be litigation. But don't be afraid to claim what should be claimed under your policy of insurance. You've been paying for it. It's yours. Don't be afraid to do so.
I agree with you 1000%. I think people should execute their policy and file a claim. Stephen Bush was on this podcast last week, and he said, I believe every insurance claim should start with the public adjuster, the way Florida insurance is running right now. And I have to give that a lot of thought because I'm just not sure about that advice. But considering the totality of what people are going through on a regular basis and the fact that they're not filing claims as much as they used to because they're afraid that they're not going to get the results that they want, and they don't have the energy or the means to fight it, right? I mean, so if they need to, look at, I was a Florida adjuster for UPC Insurance for many years. Before they closed the doors, I left and became a public adjuster. During that time, I've seen all kinds of things. I've seen all kinds of changes in the industry. I've seen all kinds of attitude changes, and it always hurts the homeowner every single time. And just to
Mhm.
let you know, my denial rate back then was about 37%, and I'm seeing 50% unpaid claims according to certain reports last year. So we're in a big mess, and I'm hoping that, conversations like this with you can help contractors. Look, they deny a claim, they get an engineer to support that denial. What is the homeowner supposed to do, Richie? How are they supposed to get an engineer? That could cost thousands and thousands of dollars. They get a preferred vendor to come out and give some kind of price on the damages, but they don't believe it. They don't want that contractor. They don't have a choice. So they call somebody else and it comes in at double the amount. What are they supposed to do?
Right. And that again, going back to how often that homeowners don't deal with claims and how they need assistance to not get screwed by their insurance provider. Going back to what Stephen Butch says, I mean, I happen to agree with him. I don't think that was all the time to where an insured would need a public adjuster on every claim, but and unfortunately, they do because the insurance companies are screwing the insured right now. They're giving them misinformation. They're letting them blow deadlines. They're pushing them into corners where they don't know. They're asking insureds to send them pictures and video and basically doing a virtual adjustment when they're supposed to be there to do their physical adjustment within 30 days or within 7 days to start the investigation. And so the homeowners don't know the laws these days. And so if they're unrepresented, they have a chance of getting underpaid or wrongfully denied, even more so than having a professional. So, unfortunately, I have to agree in saying that if you're filing a claim today on your homeowner's insurance policy, I would recommend to seek advice from a public adjuster or an attorney before you and or have them file the claim on your behalf, so you're properly represented and you're not screwed by your insurance provider.
Richie, I was going to give you the last words, but I can't beat that. You already put it in there. So fantastic. Thank you very much. I want to thank you for being on the podcast, and I really do appreciate the time. I know this conversation is kind of all over the place, but that's the way I kind of like to have it because I think people can
Sure is.
glean the information as we talk about. I mean, there's so many topics on this conversation to have. There's so many problems, there's so many issues that if we broke them down one by one, I could spend an hour on every, maybe two,
Oh,
three
yeah,
hours on every single issue, right? And yet,
absolutely.
people in Florida who go on their day-to-day lives, they have no idea what's going on in Tallahassee. They have no idea the work that you're putting in. They have no idea the work that I'm trying to put in. And I think the only way we can do this is by educating. So I do appreciate all the work that you do with RAF. That
Absolutely.
contractor talk is extremely important, and I enjoy watching those videos, to be honest with you, because I think contractors need to be involved in the conversation as well, right? I mean, they're affected by it. So with that being said, I appreciate your time today. I hope you have a great week and a great weekend. And if there's anything that we didn't talk about or one last thing that you'd like to mention, I'm going to give it to you and then we're going to cut it out.
No, I do appreciate the time to and the effort or to be on the show here. And so I would say this that education is key, documentation is key to any type of these involvement of insurance related claims, just like we talk about so much on the show, and we revolve that around your property. Take photos. Have an annual inspection done of your roof and your exterior, and make it to where it would be very difficult for an insurance provider to deny your claim based off of not having enough information, based on not having adequate photos or documentation of your space. Make sure you protect your assets and everything within it. And so we're a nonprofit association at raflorida.org is how you hear more about us. And you can always donate there one time if you liked what you heard today. So thanks, man. I appreciate you having me on your show.
Yeah, I think everybody should support Restoration Association of Florida. They're doing good work out there. You're doing good work out there, and I appreciate your time. Thank you very much, Richie. I will see you in Tallahassee probably sometime soon. So until
All
then,
right.
or the next time we bump heads, have a great day and have a great week, man. I'll talk to you
Thanks.
soon.
You too. See ya.